Hello, we're back. It's been a minute, been busy with work, uh, with a lot of things, but we back. Okay, and we got a new setup. Hello, office chair who? Bookshelf what? Hi, my name is Jamila. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be doing a little segment I like to call Issa wrap up, which is basically just your average monthly wrap up. But I'm also gonna be talking about stuff that I watched, stuff that I listened to this month. So let's hop into it. This month, the month of July. Well, I guess it's August now, but last month in July, I read. Wait for it. I'm just gonna spin this entire video. I read 11 books. Pop my collar. Oop, that didn't even. Okay, yeah. All right. I haven't read this much since early high school, so I'm kind of feeling myself right now. Granted, a lot of it was manga and graphic novels, but it's still 11 books. The first book that I read this month was Edelon. And Edelon is the second book in the Wraith King series by Grace Draven. The first book is Radiance, and that book is basically a fantasy romance that follows two main characters, Ildiko, not quite sure how to pronounce her name, Ildiko and Brishan. Ildiko is a human from the land of Gower, and Brishan is a Kai from the land of Kai. But anyway, the Kai are not like human, they're like kind of humanoid type beings. But anyway, Brishan is the second son of the royal family, and Ildiko is the niece of the king of Gower. And so, as two kind of forgotten royals, they end up getting married. This is a political alliance between the two countries, and they don't really have a choice in the matter. There's a lot of bad blood between the Gowrie and the Kai, and so both Ildiko and Brishan are really nervous about their pending nuptials. The first book ended up being very much a friends to lovers situation, despite the whole enemies situation. It's really cute. I really enjoyed the first book. I gave it 4 stars, but that's mainly just because I thought the romance was very cute and very refreshing. But there was a lot of plot holes and world building issues that would have been fine if it was a standalone book. But it is not a standalone book, which brings me to Edelon. There was less romance, which I was sad about. But all of the plot holes and the world building issues from the first book was very obvious in the second book, just because it was definitely more plot based rather than kind of character driven or romance based. And so I just found myself wondering what the heck's going on here. And I didn't like it very much. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. The third book, I believe, is coming out sometime later this year. I'll probably check it out because it's following two side characters that I really enjoyed in the series. We'll see how it goes. I think Grace Draven's strong suit is definitely in the romance, not so much in the plot or the world building, but yeah, I mean, it's fine. Anyways, the second book that I read this month was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, but The Silent Patient follows a psychotherapist named Theo, I believe, who is has been recently transferred to a new mental health facility And this is because he wants to treat a very specific patient. I'm blanking on her name right now, but she is somewhat of a famous artist who, I think it was like 6 or 7 years prior to the start of the book, murdered her husband and was silent afterwards. So she didn't even try to defend herself during the trial. She just remained silent and has been silent the entire time. And so Theo is very intrigued by her case. He wants to help her, and he also just kind of has fallen victim to the mystery of it all and really wants to know what happened. So that is what this book is about. And it was trash. Okay, 1 star. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to talk about it more in my mid-year freakout tag, which will be coming out at some point in August, even though it's no longer the mid-year, but it is what it is. The next book that I read in July was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the first book in, I guess, the Brown Sisters trilogy, if you will. It is a romance novel. This book follows Chloe Brown, who is basically trying to get a life. At the start of the book, she kind of experiences somewhat of a near-death experience and decides, wow, I haven't really lived my life yet. So she comes up with a list, one of them being to move out of her family's home and to strike up on her own in the city. And so she does so, and that's kind of the beginning of the book. And one thing, too, is that Chloe has grown up very insulated. Her family is very well off. And on top of that, she developed chronic pain at some point in her adulthood and has been struggling with that. And so she's had a very kind of sheltered life. So she moves out and encounters her superintendent, Redford, and they don't like each other. It's very much an enemies to lovers type of romance. At some point, she manages to rope in Redford to carry out her list on how to get a life. And then it just kind of is a nice little romp. I very much enjoyed the book. I thought it was very cute. I very much liked the romance between Chloe and Redford. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talking about this book. It's kind of everywhere right now. And yeah, I give it 4 stars. It was I found it to be a little bit insta-lovey. I kind of wanted more of that enemies part. I wanted more of the bantering because I thought the bantering was very cute, but it kind of went away kind of quickly. So highly recommend. Very cute. I can't wait to read the second book, Take a Hint, Danny Brown. But I've been waiting in this hold line for the library for, a couple months now. And someday, it'll finally be here. When that will be, I have no idea. But, it's the library life. The next 2 books I read were manga. I read the 8th and 9th volume of Gekkan Shoujo no Zaki-kun, or Monthly Girls no Zaki-kun. It is a shoujo manga that follows Chiyo Sakura, who is a 16-year-old high school student. At the start of the story, she is basically trying to confess her love to her crush, Nozaki. And because he's a little bit dense, he misinterprets what's going on and thinks that Chiyo is a fan of his work. And so he gives her an autograph. And then she's like, wait, no, this is not what I meant. She says, I want to be with you. And so he takes her to his apartment and ends up getting her to help him with his manga. And it turns out that Nozaki, under a pen name of Yumeko something or another, is a popular shoujo manga author, artist, and is working on a very popular shoujo manga series that everyone loves in this world. And he thinks that Sakura wants to help him with that and is a fan of his work. And so she becomes his assistant. There are other assistants involved that are also students from their high school. It's very much a slice of life following kind of an array of characters with Nozaki and Chio at the center. And it's hilarious. I love it. If you can watch the anime, you should do it. It's on Netflix right now. I am so sad that it's only 12 episodes and it came out like 6 years ago. So I'm kind of thinking they're probably not going to adapt any more of the manga. But after my like 7 millionth rewatch, I decided to pick up the manga kind of like where it left off. And so I've been reading that, and then I read volumes 8 and 9 in July. It was great. I gave volume 8 4 stars and volume 9 5 stars. I've already read 10 and 11 in August, but that's not what we're talking about right now. So the next 6 or 5-ish books that I read were for the Reading Rush. I did participate in the Reading Rush this year. I participated in the Instagram challenges. If you look at my Instagram now, I kind of changed the captions so that it didn't really reference the Reading Rush. And I also privated my Reading Rush TBR. If you have kind of been following the controversy surrounding the Reading Rush, you'll know that there's been a lot of mishandlings and insensitivity that happened. I don't really want to get super into it because, quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of talking about it. This is like the third time I'm filming this monthly wrap up, and each time I spent like 20 minutes giving my thoughts, and that's kind of exhausting. But I will say there's been a few things leading up to the main thing that kind of set things off. But I'll just talk about Such a Fun Age, which was the group book that nobody knew about. It was posted on the Reading Rush Instagram, I believe, at the end of June. And since that, there has been no other posts or promotion that there is a group book or that there was a group book. And when it finally came to the live show, the hosts didn't read it. In fact, they only got about 50 pages and the other one got about 20 pages in. And so they ended up spending the rest of the live stream kind of brushing off the fact that they didn't finish the book, that they are hosting a live stream for a book club pick. I don't know. The whole thing was whack. The whole point of the book is to talk about performative activism and how white people use blackness and black bodies to make themselves appear woke and not racist and all of that stuff. So I think they just really missed the mark by not reading the book. I mean, just in general, if you're hosting a group book and you're going to be hosting a live stream to discuss the book, I would imagine that you would read it. But, you know, life happens. I get that they are very busy putting together the Reading Rush, but I think the whole thing was just mishandled. Either they needed to prioritize reading that book or understand their capacity and have someone else who's going to put thought into this live stream and do a good job hosting it. I don't know if I'm really going to participate in the Reading Rush next year. The whole experience was just not fun for me, regardless of all the issues that happened. I think just forcing myself to read so many books in kind of a short amount of time was not fun. If you want to read Such a Fun Age, you should do so. Support Black authors. The Unfriendly Black Hotties, which is a newish booktube channel / book club / a group of Black booktubers, are reading Such a Fun Age and hosting a live stream at the end of August. So you should read that and support them. I will be reading that and attending, I guess, viewing the live stream as well. So anyways, let's move on. So the first book that I read for the Reading Rush was Blood and Chocolate. This is a YA paranormal romance. And if I were to explain the plot to you right now, I would say I don't know what the plot was, because really it was all over the place. It's marketed as a story that follows our main character, Vivian, who is a werewolf. She recently moved to Maryland after losing her father in a situation that happens. And so he was also the pack leader for her pack, I guess. I almost said clan of werewolves. And so she's attending this new high school. She sees this cute human boy and falls in love with him. And you would think, oh, okay, so this is just, a typical YA romance where this werewolf girl falls in love with this human boy and there's complications and drama. And really, that's maybe like a third of this book. Honestly, the human boy is irrelevant like halfway through the book. There's like this whole thing with trying to find the new pack leader, and there's this other thing where Vivian is getting set up by someone. This book is 250-ish pages, and it felt like reading this book. Truly hated it the entire time. It was not well written. The plot, like I already mentioned, is all over the place. And there was not a single character that I liked in this book. Vivian is 16 for half of this book and then turns 17 halfway through. But regardless, she is a teenage girl. And she is super sexualized in this book. By all means, there's totally nothing wrong with, a young woman having autonomy over her body and enjoying sex or whatever, but the narrative very much objectifies her in a way that's just like made me go ew the entire time. Like, it almost feels like the author was writing an adult paranormal romance, but then for some reason decided to make this YA, or at least maybe the publishers marketed it as YA. I have no idea, but the actions that Vivian takes does not seem like something that a teenage girl would be doing. She is very much painted out as this sexy, vivacious character, and I'm just sitting here confused because I'm just like, listen, no 16-year-old is like this. Anyway, she's over sexualized. Not to mention, there was a ridiculous amount of grown ass men leering at her, looking at her weirdly, objectifying her. It was all nasty, and I didn't like it. And spoiler warning, this is your chance to leave if you don't want to know what happens in this book, but I don't recommend reading it whatsoever. It's trash. But anyways, like I mentioned earlier, the human love interest really plays no part in this book that much after about the halfway point. She actually ends up with the new pack leader, Gabriel? I have no idea. I don't care to remember his name. But he is 24 years old, okay? And keep in mind, she's 17 at the oldest in this book. And that whole scene at the end when she, like, ends up getting with him, because he's been pursuing her this entire time. He's just like, oh, of course you're gonna, like, be with me. And I'm just like, you're a grown-ass man. Please step away from this child. And she ends up with him. It's a very weird situation, and I hate it here. Basically, the motto of me reading this book was, I hate it here. Didn't like it. Yeah. 1 star. 0 stars if I could give it 0 stars. The next book that I read is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This book follows our protagonist, who I'm now realizing is unnamed. But it follows a middle-aged man who is back in his hometown for a funeral. And he kind of ends up wandering away and to this farmhouse that's owned by the Hempstocks. He's sitting kind of like by the pond at this farmhouse, and he starts to remember things, remember a specific series of events from his childhood. And so the rest of the book takes place in that memory, where the main character is, I believe, 8 or 9 years old. And it follows an adventurous summer that he had with the Hempstocks, specifically Letty Hempstock. He's 11 years old. He meets her. There's an adventure. There's an evil force that needs vanquishing. It's very eerie. It very much is taking a look at childhood, what it means to be human. It's kind of dramatic. It's a short book. This is like the shortest Neil Gaiman book that I read. It might be his shortest. Maybe Stardust is shorter. I don't know. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very atmospheric. There are definitely parts in here that were kind of creepy. Trigger warning for child abuse at one point in this book. There's literally just like one instance of it, but it was very shocking and it made sense in context, but I was kind of like thrown for a loop reading that scene. So just warning if that's something that is going to affect you. But I gave this 4 stars. Honestly, it's kind of sitting somewhere between 4 and 4.5 stars. It kind of just depends on when I'm thinking about this. It fluctuates between the two. I really enjoyed it. Whoo boy. So, the next book that I read was The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. And I initially thought that this was going to be something I would like. I know it had mixed reviews, but I thought this is probably going to be at least a 3-star read for me. I thought it was going to fall somewhere between the trashy romance books that I read, which I read intentionally because it's so ridiculous that it's fun to read, and somewhere between the standouts, I think, in the romance genre. So I thought I was going to fall somewhere in the middle. But this just threw me for a loop. This book follows our 2 protagonists, Alexa and Drew. Alexa is a lawyer and chief of staff for the mayor of Berkeley, and Drew is a pediatric doctor. The start of this book is the 2 of them getting stuck together in an elevator at this hotel. Alexa is there to meet up with her sister, and Drew is there to attend a wedding. And so they get stuck on this elevator, they bond, it's cute, it's funny, whatever. They get out of this elevator, and Drew, impulsively asks Alexa to be his date for the wedding, and she agrees. And that's kind of what starts off this story. I thought that the story was going to focus more on like this whole wedding situation. It is called The Wedding Date after all, so I thought it was going to follow the romance developing between the 2 of them over the course of this wedding. Granted, it's only over the weekend, so I think that just would have been too quick for my liking anyways, but I kind of just assumed that it was going to take place over the course of this wedding. But it really is about maybe a third of the book, and coincidentally, it's the third of the book that I liked. If it had just been that, it would have been a lot better in my opinion, but then it kind of goes off and becomes what, really, After the wedding, they keep in touch and decide that they kind of want to continue dating. I believe that both of them are kind of under the impression that it's just going to be like a fun, no ties. They're just having fun with each other. After that, it kind of just evolves. I didn't really care so much. A lot of it was Alexa wondering what her position was in his life, even though they could just talk. Communication is a huge issue in this book. They just refuse to talk to each other about anything important regarding their relationship. And, yeah. Anyways, Drew sucks. Hate him. He could literally fall off a cliff, and I would just stand there and look as he falls because he is flaming hot garbage. Literally hate him. It was so hard to get into this romance because I hated him, and Alexa is this great, strong woman, career woman, and yet he is a little bitch baby. Basically. I have to read you this line because truly, I almost chucked my Kindle after reading this because I was so angry. So, Drew and Alexa are having yet another fight because they fight quite a bit in this book. He then says this to her, and I quote,
When you decided to push back our dinner reservations by an hour last night because you were on the phone with your buddy Teddy, writing one fucking sentence together for 45 minutes, did I call you a controlling bitch workaholic who doesn't pay attention to anyone else's feelings? No, I didn't, but I sure as hell could have.
"Ha? What? Excuse me? Is that how you talk to somebody? Literally, throw the whole man away." Oh my god. Do you know what she should have done? She should have dropped him. She should have drop kicked him, honestly. But she does not. After this fight, she is rightfully angry, and he's like, "Oh no, oh wait, don't mean, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that." And because he's on call at the hospital, coincidentally, right at this moment, he gets a call saying that he needs to come in right in this fight. And she stays, which I thought, girl, please treat yourself better than this. And yeah, obviously they end up together because why wouldn't they? I just, didn't like this book at all. There was also, I feel like the author was trying to make some commentary about like interracial relationships because Jasmine is a black woman and Drew is a white man. But it just, I don't really know where the author was trying to go with it. One of the kind of side plots, she was working on a rehabilitation, like art therapy program for troubled youth, as the book says. And so she's very passionate about this. She has personal experience with this. And so she is sharing this passion with Drew, and he basically um, belittles her almost. He's basically like, "Oh, well, don't you think that this program is just letting off these kids easy?" Which, first of all, honey, privileged white man. Um, and so she, again, rightfully is upset with him, but then kind of lets it go. Like, there's so many little instances where it becomes apparent that, they have very different backgrounds and very different life experiences, and there's never a conversation between the two of them, really. Drew never learns from this situation. And yeah, it feels weird because, like, not only does he just suck in general because he's, like, trash to his friends as well, like there is very much a privilege imbalance going on in this relationship, and it's never addressed, and it just feels like very harmful for Alexa, and I'm just like, on so many fronts. And on top of that, there are instances where Alexa is like being hit on by people he knows and being fetishized as a black woman. And there's one instance I remember this happening at like a party that they're at, and Alexa tells Drew about it, and he's like, "Oh man, like that guy's an asshole or whatever." And Alexa is just like internally having this monologue like, "Wow, he believed me right away. This is so great." And I'm just like, the bar is so low, like anyway, I'm getting angry talking about this book, so let's move on. The next book I read is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I read this for the prompt that was to read a genre that you don't read much about, and I don't really read classics on my own, and honestly, I haven't really read many black classic books either, so I really wanted to remedy that, and I ended up reading Their Eyes Were Watching God. 5 stars. This was a great book. I kind of went in with low expectations because, again, I just don't generally like classics. Well, I just don't gravitate towards them. And, this is written in the 30s, it takes place in the 30s. Um, I just thought, I was going to maybe have a difficult time relating to the main character, Janie Crawford. That was not the case. I think that we're both very different people, but I very much enjoyed watching her story and watching her grow as a person and kind of find her own autonomy in a world and a society where, you know, people don't want to see a black woman win. So not only is she dealing with racism, she lives in Florida, and this takes place mainly in Florida. She's dealing with a lot of misogynoir coming from the men in her life, and that very much takes place in her. She goes through 3 marriages um, that start off when she's like 16 years old and follows her until I think she's about 40. I kind of wrote like a mini review on my Instagram about this book. So if you kind of want a more coherent review about this book, I would go check that out. But I really enjoyed this. Definitely made me want to check out other books by Zora Neale Hurston. I also read this via audiobook. It was kind of, I think it's like the first audiobook that I've completely listened to. I was following along, obviously, so that I could like tab things and take notes. But I highly recommend the audiobook. It's narrated by Ruby D. And it's not only narrated, but she does like voice acting as well. She voices the characters in like a different way. She's just not like straight reading through it. And her voice is so lovely. It just feels so like warm and comforting listening to it. And I highly recommend that and just reading this book because it's great. The next book that I read, Bitterroot by David Walker and co. Probably this is like the third time I filmed this video, and each time I still haven't looked up who the other authors are, which trash. But anyway, editing Jamila, please put in who the other authors are. Hi, it's editing Jamila here. The authors are David Walker, Chuck Brown, and art by Sanford Green. Yay! Basically, this is a graphic novel that takes place during the Harlem Renaissance. It follows the Sangares family, who is a family of monster hunters. They've been hunting monsters and fighting them for many generations. And in this world, the monsters are kind of like an allegory for white supremacy, for hatred, for racism, for intolerance. Basically, people, and it's been mostly white people, who have done a lot of harm and have a lot of like hatred in their heart are being turned into these monsters. So the Sangares family basically has this serum of sorts that can turn them back human, and they basically fight these monsters and save mankind, if you will. Basically, in this first volume, there's something like new happening with these monsters, and the Sangares are having to figure out how to deal with it. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really like the art style as well. My copy is actually signed by David Walker. I don't know if you can see that. I picked this up at Rose City Comic Con last year. After watching David Walker's panel talking about this, I ended up going to his booth after and buying this along with a couple of other graphic novels and comics from him, and he signed it, which was really cool. I'm excited to read the second volume, which I believe is coming out sometime in October. But yeah, 4 stars. I think I wanted a little bit more from as far as world building goes, but you know, I understand that this is a first volume and you can't fit everything into this. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The final book that I read this month, Bitterroot was the final book that I read for the reading rush. But the final book that I read this month is Wow, No Thank You by Samantha Irby. This is a collection of essays written by Samantha about kind of like her life and different thoughts and things. Honestly, I read about half of this and then kind of skimmed the rest. It wasn't quite my cup of tea. I don't think that I really vibed with Samantha's humor that much. I think in the beginning I thought she was very funny, at least the stuff that she was talking about. But yeah, I just don't know that I'm necessarily the intended audience for this book. but I read this for my book club, Pros Before Bros. This was our July pick. And yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I think there were parts that I liked and parts that I was kind of like, eh. But if you are someone that likes very self-deprecating humor, I think you will probably like this.
Let's talk about TV shows. Don't know what this date is.
2 shows that I would like to shout out. 1, Romance is a Bonus Book. This is a Korean romantic comedy drama that's on Netflix. Cute as hell. Honestly, among there now with my top 3 Korean dramas. It is so cute and so great, and I should probably tell you what it's about. It follows our main character, Danny, who is a recent divorcee, a single mother, and she's really down on her luck. She is very much struggling financially because her trifling ass husband not only cheated on her but took all of their money, and so she is trying to not only take care of herself but her daughter and send her daughter money because she is attending a private school in, I believe, the Philippines. So she is trying to get back in the workforce. She had attended a prestigious university and had a solid career as a marketer before she got married and decided to become a housewife. And so now she's trying to get back into her career and is struggling a lot because of that time off. She was out of work for 11 years, and so there's very much a stigma about women coming back into their careers later. And so she's struggling to find a job, and eventually she sees that the publishing firm that her best friend works at is hiring for a kind of just like a generic office assistant position. Her best friend, Unho, is the I think the chief editor at the publishing firm and also one of their most popular authors. And so she ends up lying about her resume. She basically diminishes her qualities and her experiences so that she can get this office job because it is, I guess you could say, below her level of experience and expertise. And so she ends up getting the job, and it follows her just kind of at this firm. She is very much finding herself again. And so she's kind of just like rediscovering herself, finding her passion for work and marketing again, and also love and romance. And it's super cute. I really like it. It's super realistic. Like, I just feel like, I don't know what else to say about it. You should watch it. It's really cute. The second show I want to shout out is Fire Force, which is a shonen anime. I am not done with it yet. I have like about 10 episodes left, but I have mixed feelings about it. And I think I might do a dedicated review for the first season, so I won't go too much into it. Hi, it's Editing Jamila again. LOL, I love how I said I wasn't going to go too much into it, and by that I meant I wasn't going to go into it at all. So if you want to know more about my thoughts on Fire Force, just stay tuned because I probably will be doing a dedicated review of the first season. So yeah, bye. Let's talk about movies. 2 movies I want to shout out. The first one is Lovebirds, starring Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae. It is a romantic action comedy that follows Issa and Kumail's characters who are struggling with their relationship and in fact break up at the start of the movie. But as they're on their way to a friend's party, their car gets hijacked and they witness someone murder another person, and so they think that they're going to get implicated in this case, and they kind of go on the run, but then are trying to figure out who committed the murder so that they can clear their names. And it's very much giving me the millennial version of Date Night. It was really funny. I was hollering the entire time, and I recommend it. The next movie I want to shout out is The Old Guards, another Netflix original that came out like a couple weeks ago. It is about a group of immortal mercenaries, and after a new immortal person pops up, their secrets are discovered, and basically they're being hunted. So it's kind of, an action movie. Of course it is. Yeah. Why am I so bad at explaining this? But anyway, I thought it was fun and cool. I definitely wanted more in terms of world building, in terms of character development. I definitely thought this movie was a little bit rushed, but it does seem, if you've seen the movie and you saw the end of the movie, you know what I'm talking about, but it feels like there's going to be a second movie. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, that is all I have for you today, folks. I'm just going to continue to spin here. Peace out, homies.